Right, my first question for you is why HR?
Great question. I think it's important to sort of understand the journey from the beginning. To be honest, I fell into HR. My previous roles before I worked in HR were in kind of training and events at an education company. I'd sort of hit a bit of a ceiling in my role there. An opportunity came up under the sort of wider operations team to lead the sort of HR and recruitment team that were there. I spoke to my line manager, who was going to be the line manager for both of those roles as well. Decided that it'd be quite an interesting role, so made the application, learned a bit more about the role, and was successful in getting that. It's one of those things. I think once the opportunity came about, I realized that it was something that I had a lot of transferable skills for, but also a lot of passion for. In almost every role that I've had, and I've worked across a number of different industries, I've really found myself wanting to build relationships and really kind of caring about and caring for the people that I've worked with and worked for and managed as well. So I think once I realized that HR could really form a big part of that, and that I could lean into those skills and the passion that I had for that, it was really kind of quite an exciting thing for me. I've always kind of found that I've got relatively high levels of empathy. That's something I think from tests and stuff that I've carried out, that's something that's always been quite high for me. So I think being able to transfer that into a professional role really appealed to me. I like making sure that sort of processes are in place. I am mildly dyslexic, so I have to make sure that in some cases processes are followed. I'm very much a list maker. So having that also really kind of suited my own style of how I wanted to do things, and making sure that there's legal compliance and everything is in place, and that things like recruitment processes are consistent and followed regardless of what the role it is that we're hiring for. It really kind of brought me closer and closer to the role, and the more time that I spent within HR, there were more things that I found that I was excited about and passionate and wanted to sort of be a part of. So although I fell into it, it was one of those things that I feel really fortunate that that's how it came about, and I still love it to this day. I'm really excited about HR as as a profession, and the world of HR as a whole too.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's super interesting. And we spoke before this call about kind of how interesting it is that people end up in different roles or in career path in HR for different reasons. And actually, it's not always as black and white as following a very linear trajectory. It's kind of, actually, you had great experience in operations, you had like the soft skills that really kind of lent itself well to being in a people team, and the two married together has probably made you like a great individual at being able to excel sort of in the role, because actually you understand the operational and process driven elements that need to be involved, but then also have like those soft skills to excel in a people function. So that's
Yeah,
really
for sure. And I think one of the things, once I started in HR, I then wanted to go and get myself qualified. So I ended up doing my level 5 CIPD, because I think from my own personal perspective, I just wanted to have a little bit of formal education behind me for this particular role. And while I don't think that's necessary as such, for me, it felt like I could rely on some of the research and sort of testing that I'd done throughout the CIPD qualification. So it just kind of gave me a bit more of a sense of understanding and professionalism within HR too.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of knowing that you have the sort of bare bones or the skills there, but then actually formally training yourself in the processes and understanding sort of the theory behind it, and make sure that you're using that in the right way.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is great. And it sort of, I guess, leans into my next question. I don't know whether this would actually be part of it, but I mean, what's one sort of piece of advice that you wish you'd known when you were starting out in HR that you would give to someone? It might be the CIPD qualification, I don't know, but it's open to you.
I mean, I think that is useful. I don't think it's for everyone, so I'm not sure that I'd say that's sort of vital. For me, and having spoken to quite a few people within HR, which funnily enough leans into my answer, is that HR can be very lonely. It can be a role that, although you touch many parts of the business and speak to a lot of people and have interactions with a lot of people, in some cases and in a number of roles that I have, it's a standalone role, and you have to be very confidential. And there are certain things and certain conversations that need to remain within the bounds that they were set for. So it can be difficult to receive all of this information and then in some cases not be able to discuss it if you don't have a peer network or you don't have a team working for you. So what I've found and what I always say now is build a community, look for people that work within HR. LinkedIn's a great resource for that. There's loads and loads of events that take place where HR professionals get together to discuss. And again, there's obviously always confidentiality within those conversations, but you can still discuss topics and issues that have arisen, and just kind of air out your thoughts, and within that peer network get support, and hopefully then kind of better yourself and get a better understanding of how you can be, and but also how you can then support others too, because as you get better at that, you become a better person to help support. So yeah, I think building that community, having those people that you can rely on for advice and for guidance, and sometimes just be there as a shoulder to lean on, or as an ear to be able to talk through certain things, because yeah, it can be quite lonely, and it can be overwhelming at times. I think the last few years, particularly through COVID, it's been one of the areas of industry where burnout has been the highest, because they've been leaned on heavier than they ever have, certainly from my professional career, because of all the issues that came about from COVID and the pandemic, and changes in remote working and mental health awareness. There's been far more of a focus on HR. So us coming together, generally speaking, the people that I speak to, HR is a really friendly bunch. They are in it to help out. So if you reach out to them, I've never had anyone not want to provide support or provide advice and guidance. And I think it's really, really important to get that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that encouragement is fantastic, because I found the same. I mean, not working directly in HR myself, but everyone who I've spoken to has been so quick to offer me advice around kind of being new into the engagement space, but also even since asking people to join the series, everyone's been very receptive, very keen to help. And yeah, I'm a huge advocate myself of the community, especially around HR. I think it's clearly very powerful, especially like you say, a lot of the LinkedIn online communities, but also events, and having those buddies or peers or allies who you can go to for advice around, like you say, whether it's your career, a particular scenario that you need support with. Leaning on each other is often the best way to kind of get to better and quicker results. But like you say, it's kind of having that open dialogue and communication with people who understand what you're going through, and can kind of, I guess, all align on the same sort of experiences on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'd like to add there as well, thank you so much to everyone in HR for all of your work.
Very good point. Yeah, absolutely.
The unsung heroes, because it was an extremely challenging time, and a lot of people were struggling, and you guys were very much kind of the foundations of a lot of businesses, and were there for a lot of the people. So yeah, that shouldn't go unnoticed either.
I agree.
Fantastic. Okay, so we spoke earlier again, and I'll kind of preface it with this, but you've worked in HR for a long time. You've already seen quite a few changes since joining the company that you're at now, but where do you sort of see the field of HR going in the next 5 years?
It's a really difficult question to answer, I think, particularly with what has happened over the last few years and the complete unpredictability of that. No one thought 6 years ago, 5 years ago, that we'd be sat here having been through a pandemic, both of us seemingly working from home, which has become far more normal than it ever was. So I think there's certain things that I think will have an impact, and there are certain things that I'm not sure that we can predict. So AI at the moment, obviously from a technology perspective, is becoming bigger and bigger in every industry and every profession that we're working in. I read a really interesting piece earlier this week about it's unlikely that it will have an impact as fast as a lot of it's expected to. If you look previously at other technology, the internet probably being the biggest one, the adoption of that actually took a really long time. And I think AI will be the same. There's already lots of trepidation about how it will be implemented, but there's also lots of positivity about the things that it can do. So I think that AI will and has had an impact in HR and will continue to do so over the next few years. Exactly what that impact is, I wish I knew. If I knew, I'd probably be a very rich man. But I think it will certainly keep having some level of impact. Going back to the previous 5 years, I think that HR has developed quite considerably. If you think about the journey that the profession has been on. Originally it was personnel, then it went to HR, and now there's sort of a transition from HR to people. And I think that's been, in some cases, a very conscious decision. HR, generally speaking, from my own experience and from, again, conversations I've had, if somebody from HR puts a meeting in your calendar, your immediate thought is, what have I done wrong? Why have I got to be in this meeting? And I think, myself included, I've tried to shift away from that to be a little bit more kind of on the fence between looking at the business and making sure that we are legally compliant, everything is in process, and that we're following everything, and that we can have as much of an impact on the business and the strategy of the business as we can, but also then the people, and making sure that they feel supported and that they have got a voice that represents them in a way that they feel is fair and understanding, and that they're not concerned about going to HR for issues that they've got. So I hope that continues as well, and that HR is able to really find that middle ground between providing business support and strategy and having an impact on the profitability and success of the business, but also really showing that empathy, that care, and that dedication to the workforce. Because at the end of the day, without a good, solid, happy workforce, the business isn't going to be successful either.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. I think, firstly, on the AI point, it's really interesting. I think it definitely is a huge buzzword at the moment. And I think a lot of people, to come back to what you said about it kind of maybe not moving as quickly as people first suspect, feel like an immediate knee-jerk reaction or pressure to have to, oh, okay, AI's here, like we need to get ahead of it. What are we going to do with it? But without knowing what it really can do or how it can be most effective, then it's probably not the right time to introduce it to an organization, right? And I know that I find a lot at the moment when I'm speaking to businesses or organizations, they'll ask, oh, well, how do you use AI within your product? And it becomes almost like a criteria for selecting a vendor. But it's actually kind of thinking about, do people understand what they're asking for when they're asking that question? Like, how does it actually work within things? So like you say, I think it's an interesting one, because there's definitely playing a part, but it's kind of to what extent AI will actually impact things.
I think I'd much rather somebody turn around and say, we don't use it because we don't feel confident in our ability to use it yet. We're monitoring it, and when we feel that we can make the most of it, we will, rather than saying, yeah, we use it because we think it's the right thing to do, but don't really get any benefit from it. I'd rather people have gone, it's not for us yet. We're not saying it's not for us, but at the moment it doesn't make sense for us, so we will continue to monitor it, and when we feel that we can make use of it in some way, we will do. I think that's just a better way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all about facilitating or like freeing up manual admin hours or whatever it might be with AI, rather than just using it because, we have AI, please use us, but actually it's not making anything more efficient.
Precisely.
And then on your second point as well, around kind of HR being that linchpin, basically between sort of the organizational strategy or collective business goals and the people, I think is such an important point as well, and something that often gets overlooked, because actually, your people generally are the engine behind your business and the ones who are going to collectively work together or strive towards achieving those business goals, whether it be increasing revenue, growth, etc. But I think being able, like you say, to move away from sort of that really annoying kind of stereotype that can sometimes be associated with HR being the fun police, or, oh, HR in the pub, I can't say X, Y, and Z, to actually, how can my relationship with HR help my voice be heard and kind of help me contribute better to the business and enjoy my time within that business better as well? So I think, that's a really, really great point and really important as well. So thank you for that. Okay, fantastic. And then from your perspective, what's the best cultural initiative that you've ever seen implemented across any business? And I will say it can be a business that you've worked at previously, or it can be kind of just an initiative that you've been a fan of, that you've seen out there.
So I was actually having this discussion. I was part of a panel at a mental health awareness charity event a few weeks ago now. And I think the best thing that almost any company can do is not just provide mental and physical health support, but really encourage people to take that up. I know lots of companies kind of, they provide it, they do something, they say, here's what we've got, and it's sort of left there. I think working in the world that we are in right now, levels of anxiety, depression are higher than we've ever seen across the entire workforce, across generations. And as companies, particularly smaller and medium-sized companies, we're not going to have the skills within the business to help deal with those. So what we can do is provide the support and provide opportunities to reach out to people that do have skills and the ability to help with that. But then the next level is really making sure that people feel safe and that they're not that it's going to be confidential where necessary, and that they don't have to reach out to their employer and say, I'm doing X, Y, and Z because of X, Y, and Z. But that there's also that there is still that support there, and that if somebody needs to take some time off to deal with issues, or they need to go and get therapy for whatever reason, that there is that support there and there's that option for them to do it, and that we try to remove that stigma around mental health and all of the different aspects of it. Because again, if you think about it from a business perspective, if you've got people that are fundamentally unhappy, or fundamentally, even if it's not just with their job and with their role, it's probably a wider issue than that, then they're not going to be as successful or as dedicated as they can, because so much of their mental capacity or physical capacity is going to be taken up dealing with these things. And it's just the right thing to do. If we're thinking about it from a people perspective, we all want to help each other out. I think it's innate in human nature to try to help each other. So the more that we can do that in a structured way that allows people to get help, get what they need for whatever that may be, like I say, mental or physical, then everyone benefits from that. And we will find that, I believe, attrition rates will decrease, because if they feel that a company that they're working for is willing and able to provide that support and encourage them to do that, not many people are going to go, I'm probably going to get this at another company right now. Hopefully at some point we will get to that point. But I think if they feel that with one company, and they feel that level of care and that duty of care is given by the company, then it will make a massive difference. And I think that the workforce and the relationship between senior management and HR and the general workforce will just become so much better.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm a huge advocate for kind of mental health and supporting people in the workplace, because I think, as you've just touched on pretty beautifully, like, it's all about how people feel, how you make them feel, and people who are supported within organizations are going to perform better. And again, it's going to link back to that wider business goal. And it's all about kind of, like you say, you're going to reduce absenteeism, because people are openly talking about why they can or can't work, and supporting them through that. Productivity will be up. And actually there's nothing but good that can come from supporting people